Well, hello, we're in John's Gospel. We're at chapter 18, and we'll do verses 19 to 27 today. So let's read them first of all, reading as usual from the ESV. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. Jesus answered him, I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple where all Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who've heard me what I said to them. They know what I said. When he had said these things, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, Is that how you answered the high priest? Jesus answered him, If what I said is wrong, bear witness about the wrong. But if what I said is right, why do you strike me? Annas then sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. So they said to him, You also are not one of his disciples, are you? And he denied it and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter again denied it, and at once a cock crowed. So we got two key things here. First of all, the start of the trial. Let's put trial in inverted commas. This was the most unusual trial. It was not carried out with due process. It occurred at a very odd time for a trial to happen. And normally the trial would start with witnesses. Which is why Jesus says later on, verse 23, what I've said is wrong. Bear witness about the wrong. Bring witnesses. It's more of an interrogation. And I think I've talked about this in the previous talk, or possibly the one before that, about the high priest business. It's easy to get confused between Annas and Caiaphas. Caiaphas was the current high priest recognised by the Roman authorities. Annas was kind of the real high priest, if you like. The one the Jews wanted. But anyway, leaving that aside, instead of bringing witnesses forward, at this point, the interrogator said and asked him about his disciples and his teaching. Now, Jesus said nothing about his disciples. Remember earlier he said he did things to protect his disciples. On the cross, all the work was done by Jesus. We contributed absolutely nothing. Our justification, our salvation, is purely dependent upon the Lord Jesus. Now that doesn't mean we don't do anything afterwards. God created us in the first place so we could do stuff. Go back to Genesis and read it. Look at life. And he has saved us to do stuff. As has often been said, we're not saved by works, but we are saved for works. But in terms of our justification, it's all down to Jesus. And then with regard to the teaching, Jesus said, well, what are you asking me for? You know what I said. I taught openly, including in the synagogues, in the temple. And in the temple, people could hear me. You need to ask me what I said. You know witnesses, but they couldn't. This was a sham of a trial. And in response to this, one of the officers struck him with his hand. How can you answer the high priest like this? Jesus said, what I said's wrong, prove it. Jesus remained calm throughout. So Annas, knowing that the trial was a sham, sent him to Caiaphas. Meanwhile, as I think I've said before, the only one in all this, the whole business, who was calm and in control was Jesus. No one else had a clue what they were doing. And Peter didn't have a clue what he was doing. We then get briefly mention of his last two denials. First one, we're not told who it is, but Peter denies it. Said, no, I'm not one of his disciples. And then the servant who'd been in the garden when Peter had struck off the ear of Malchus recognised him, and Peter again denies it. And then the cock crows. And that, well, in the other Gospels, we get a description of Peter weeping bitterly. Realises what he's done and who he is. It is not as righteous as he thought he was, not as committed to Jesus as he thought he was. And I guess we can all identify with that. But our salvation is dependent purely upon the Lord Jesus Christ. We'll continue events in the next video.